A bobo, bobo, bo, a bobo, a bobo, bobo, bo. Let me show. What's up? Hello, hello. Share. Ba boom, ba boom. Look at this. This is nice. 75 minutes to go. All right, I'm gonna send the link to just a few people in case anyone wants to come in. I'm live. I'm live. I'm live. I'm sending the link. Catching up on DMs here while live. How's it going, everyone? Okay, 0 people watching. What's up? I brought a Canada Dry. You know what that is? Do you guys know what a Canada Dry is? Do that. Canada Dry is a type of ginger ale. But this one is diet. They say diet, the fake sugar that's in diet causes cancer, and I don't know if that's true or not. Doesn't Trump drink Diet Coke? I forget. Um, but yeah, I'm a sort of believer in diet. The only thing is, it kind of does. I feel like it does like make me drowsy or something. Like my brain does not react well to that fake sugar, and so, but we're kind of closing up the day here. We're just closing out, and like shit. You know what? I'll party. I'll drink a diet ginger ale. Um, Today was kind of a funny day. I was penciling Percival. It kind of started like on page 1 basically. There was a lot of work to get up to that point even. Like I thought I spent the last few days like thumbnailing ahead a little bit, designing some characters, making sure everything is in place to get started. I was going to start yesterday and I realized there was a little more I had to do. So today, wake up, today's the day. I start drawing page 1. And I got page 1 kind of good penciled. It might actually need a little bit more like penciling added, but it's all there. It's feeling good. I'm like, I'll move on to page 2, and I end up spending, it might have been 3 hours on one panel, and the one panel is like the picture of a hand holding a little idol kind of thing. Now I know you can imagine. I think people do know that that is like hard to draw, and it's funny. It's like I drew it, erase it, drew it, erase it, drew it, erase it, drew it, erase it. Maybe like 10, 12 times. Like 10, 11, 12, it was starting to look pretty good and I could do it kind of fast. So I don't know. There's a little faith of like, yeah, if you can draw most anything if you stick to it, but definitely gotta like, I don't know. There's points where like in the middle when you're kind of warming up to seeing the image in your head or something, like attempt number 5 or something, I kind of spent a lot of time on it and I could have given up there and it could have worked okay. But I was thinking like, you know what I want? I want it to kind of feel a little bit from the POV of the guy holding the idol. So I want to make sure the perspective's right. And I want it to be a kind of a wide angle lens, a little bit closer, filling the frame slightly differently. Because it's a little bit different if it's close. If it's close, your hand looks way weird if it's close. See like that? Can you guys see my hand? Like that's like if you draw that, it's like, that pinky is huge. The pinky's way bigger than the thumb. But if you're drawing in your head, you're like, oh, the pinky's the smallest finger. You draw it small. That will give you like this kind of flat perspective that can still look good, but that's like a more long angle perspective kind of thing. If your hand's far away, like even from here, that's like normal. It's a normal hand gripping. So I was kind of drawing like that. I was like, I want it to look like this though. and that took 7 more tries after doing it a bunch, you know. And I was like, it does affect morale slightly because I was like, shit, that was my whole afternoon work sesh, drawing and erasing one panel. And then I hope the next time I draw, I'm like, well, yeah, I'll have a little more comfort. I think this is true. You have a little more comfort drawing. If you just say, I have to draw a freaking hand holding an idol, you have a little bit more. The other thing I was doing is first off, I drew the idol, then I tried to draw a hand around it. That did not work. I ended up having to draw the hand, and then you draw the idol in the hand. So whatever. Popping Rico, I still struggle with perspective. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it just takes you have to be willing to erase a bunch, and then if you're willing to erase, then you just erase and redraw until it looks good the way you like it or whatever. Yeah, the dynamic poster trick. There's a good image I saved from Twitter long ago, and I don't know if I could if it's still around, but it was like a Japanese artist, and they just had 5 drawings of the same exact thing, and you could tell they were warming up basically, and they were making each one more dynamic. And I think the last one looked so professional and so awesome. It was a gesture like pointing to the sky. So the last one looked like the guy like, yeah. And it's like he had stars in his eyes. He's like, yeah. And like the first one was like, eep, oop, oop, oop. And even the second to last one was like, eh. And I wonder if he like took it too far. I'm like, you almost can't. I think like, you know what? Oh, I almost want to see if I can find that image. Where would it be? It might be here. I don't know if I can do this live. Everyone back the Kickstarter if you haven't backed it. So it ends in 68 minutes. It would be really sweet to pass 10,000. I don't know. I can't say if that's realistic or not. I don't even know. Oh, you know what I should do though is I should tweet out that I'm live streaming. So let me do that. But yeah, our whole goal here is to get to 10,000. So feel free to like retweet the live stream and let people know that there's only an hour left. So uh, we'll get in on it here. 3 people watching, it says. Okay, I'm retweeting the stream. Boom. All right, we're just going to awkwardly stare at the campaign now. I've done everything I needed to do. Now I'll take a sip of my Canada Dry. Let's all just sit in the awkwardness as it slowly doesn't go up. You know, I've thought about that. Those if you I hold too much like dopamine on the backers going up and the numbers going up, and it's just the way it is. Whatever. That's why I like enjoy kind of if I don't have a live campaign, you can kind of shut that part of your brain down. But I've thought before, I'm like, what if I did just like stare at my phone and say, I'm not moving from this spot until I get one backer. And then I'm like, okay, what would that have been like? Because I don't actually do that. But a lot of times it's like you would have been there 24 hours. You're like, I don't know if I could have waited 24 hours just staring at it to finally get that fix of like, oh, the numbers went up, the numbers went up. But yeah, sometimes hypothetically it could be like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and you're like, ooh, was it worth it? Did I contribute to the universe making that happen? Infinite Entertainment, what's up, man? Congrats on the successful campaign, brother. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Jolly Green, what's up, man? 5 people watching. How's it going, everyone? Yeah, the numbers are pretty good here. 9,770. So close to 10,000. I wonder if we can hit 10,000. If you haven't backed it, now's the time. There's a fair amount of people backing the entire Earthbound series, which is a lot of fun. Glad people doing that. Because at this point it has been many books, kind of, you know. If you if you do it by single issues, at this point it's been 18, I think, which is kind of fun. That's like kind of high, you know. But that's like 22-page increments. Um, Alex VRB, what's up, man? Yep. All right, 65 minutes to go. We're just sitting here. We're just sitting here watching the campaign. What else can we do? I don't even know. What do you guys want to talk about? I don't even know. Creative Block might have to change the name, right, Alex? Because there's some manga named Panel Breakers, apparently. Is it an AI manga? I didn't follow it that closely, but oh my god, 64 minutes left, you guys. 64 minutes. Oh my god, you guys. 64 minutes. Mm-mm. Tomorrow on my channel, I'm promoting Genuine Class. Uh, wait, Genuine Class, right? Or Genuine Comics? But it's is there's a couple genuines out there. Um, his book Perfect 10 trade release is out. Infinite's gonna co-host that with me. Um, so tomorrow 5 p.m. on my channel. Poppy Rico says, I've been drawing kaijus lately. Any idea you have for a comic like that? No, but I maybe want to talk a little bit about. I've been down a little bit of a rabbit hole here on YouTube the past few days. It kind of started because of this book called Between Two Fires. So I've talked about this on a few streams before too, but I haven't got too much into it yet. And I remembered what I was going to say earlier is there's a scene in Between Two Fires where so they described the whole thing and they were describing it like people say it's like a video game and that sometimes that's a positive, sometimes that's like a negative. To me, it's kind of like a positive, and it's not like a video game as far as like leveling up, like lit RPG, which is also I'm interested in kind of digging into those a little bit actually. But they say it's like it's episodic boss battles, but it's horror themed with great characters and a cool story. But yeah, these encounters become like the story. And I'm like, manga's like that, like Berserk is like that. And yeah, so this book Between Two Fires is like that. And one of the quote unquote boss battles is like they're wandering and they end up meeting a stranger on the road who invites them up to his castle for dinner and to stay the night. And it 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 ends up being like the whole time you're like a little bit like some paranoia, like is this guy a good guy or a bad guy? Which is awesome. And what's fun about paranoia is like I feel like kind of obviously from the structure of the story, knowing that you're reading a horror book, you're everyone's like 99% sure something is up. The guy is not a good guy. But the fact it's 99%, this is a weird like human psychology thing. The fact it's 99% means it's not 100%. When it's 100%, uh, we stop thinking about it and we move on to something else. But if it's 99%, it's the same 50%, 50/50, the most unsure you can be. It's the same psychologically as 99% as far as like you're not allowed to move on yet. So that's great for storytelling. So yeah, you'd be surprised when you're dealing with this like paranoia type stuff. Um yeah, we know this guy's probably and yeah, the story can always mess with your expectations a little bit. Maybe they could twist it and he could be a good guy. The castle could have some fuckery about, but he's actually not one of the bad guys. But yeah, it's a real fun setup of it's actually like a type of ghost story that they were doing that is actually influenced by from the original Percival fairy tale. And I'm doing Percival now, so I definitely recognized it and got kind of stoked because there's a legend in the Percival story. So and I haven't even told the full story of this. He goes to the dinner and the dinner, yeah, something's up at the dinner, and then people are kind of talking to him a little bit weird. And then I think it ends like in the morning. He wakes up drunk. There's some good stuff. He ends up having to fight someone. He does survive. There's a little girl he's been traveling with. She goes to like a test and trial too. She tells him at the dinner to not drink the wine because she thinks something's up a little bit. And he is such an alcoholic. He agrees, but he actually forgets, like, because his natural motion is to drink. So, and then he notices he's been drinking and he's like, fuck, I told her I wouldn't drink. Like, that's fun human psychology. That's a good example of like, yeah, someone being like quote unquote dumb, I guess, but like totally in a realistic way. Uh, Alex Ruby says pinned a link. Yeah, let me see if I can go ahead and do that right here. Someone post link. Alex does pin the message. Okay, I pinned it. Uh, so yeah, 160. Yeah, it's been a good last day. It's gone up like a grand in the last day. A grand. Um, and yeah, it's teased me to that it can maybe hit 10,000, but who knows? Who knows? I should, you know what I should do is I will do one final tweet. Uh, okay. NDA Andrew just retweeted. Thanks, Andrew. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so I was talking about this just scene there's a scene in Apocalypse Now. And I think it might be only be in Apocalypse Now Redux maybe, but where because there's a big that takes place in Vietnam, right? And they're going up a river and to get Colonel Kurtz, and it's loosely based on the Africa River story called Heart of Darkness, which is also loosely based on a true story about a mission to track this guy out in the Congo River that had cannibalism and stuff in it, some crazy stuff that I saw a Wendigoon thing about. But yeah, in Apocalypse Now Redux, there's a part where they're going up river and they end up Vietnam has it was colonized by the French, so there's a French population there, and there's this mansion with French people living in it, and they have dinner with the people with the French mansion, and they obviously don't. That's not like a supernatural story, but it is a little surreal, and and that's the fun of it, kind of the cinema or whatever. Um, but it could almost be a ghost story. That's a fun genre of ghost story where you have this experience that could and that's you can't disprove it. You could say that was a ghost story, and there's no way to say it wasn't really, but just that it's not a horror movie or whatever. But yeah, this like type of ghost story where you have this experience and then looking nothing too crazy happens, but it's a little weird. And then looking back on it, shit was weird and you realize, oh man, that's kind of crazy. Whatever. Like that's a type of like subtle, fun ghost story. And it can be not subtle too, or it can be the intro to get that way. Fairies, I've been reading a little bit about the Irish fairy lore type stuff. That's exactly how it always is too, where you have this like experience and then you find out, oh, that was a fairy experience. And like there was one I read where this guy, these people, the fairies, but they don't say they're like midgets or whatever. Like the fairies are like people, but you don't know. Like it's just like creepy or whatever. And they ask him to uh ref a game for them. And it's presumably kind of like a soccer game or something. But and he agrees, but he doesn't know how to play it because he does figure out he thinks it's a fairy experience halfway through, and he knows that one of the things the fairies will do is that you're kind of not in the real world if the fairy experience is happening, and they won't let you return to the real world if you like do something wrong. So he's worried if he messes up the refereeing of the game, uh, then they won't let him return to the real world. And so what he ends up doing, he's worried that if one team wins, the team that loses is going to take it out on him. So he ends up calling the game a little bit early, but he calls it when it's a tie with like 2 minutes officially left in the game. But he calls it a tie because it's 1-1. Finally, the other team evens it up. And the fairies might have known he was doing that on purpose, but they didn't get mad at him, and he did get to go back to the real world. And that's like a fun kind of legend lore thing. But so then in Percival, the original Percival story, the legend, this is like old legend stuff, but it's during the Percival's quest for the Holy Grail. It's called the Fisher King, which you guys might have heard of it. But yeah, he comes upon this guy who's fishing, and I think he's like really sad. The guy's like bummed out, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And the guy's like, "Yo, you're traveling?" And he's like, "Yeah." And the fisher guy is like, "Yeah, go up to my castle. We'll feed you." So he goes up to the castle, and then yeah, he has like a crazy experience in the castle, And the main thing, they do this procession for him. They do this kind of ritual, and there's like beautiful women and the king's there the whole time. But one of the things is they actually bring out the lance that stabbed Jesus. And this is maybe like different versions of this because like I feel like every legend has a version that's pre-Christian. So I only know the post-Christian version of this, but um and then the idea being that Percival was supposed to ask about the lance. Oh, and really just ask anything. But he had previously been told that as a wise child trying to get like smarter, don't ask questions, don't ask stupid questions, like just listen was like his advice. So he didn't ask any questions. The king got kind of offended, and then Percival goes to bed, and when he wakes up, the castle's empty and everyone's gone, and and it was like they were all ghosts. So he had this ghost experience. So yeah, you can definitely like use this stuff in stories. It's a fun kind of thing to do. And Between Two Fires Total uses that setup as one of the boss battles. Um, and it kind of scratches the itch of like it's not even like full like Dark Souls lore, horror, or whatever. Because I still feel like that's a little bit. I've mentioned in the past like that's at a place where it could be. It's so prevalent that it could be punked or parodied, but also it still feels like sort of undertapped in comics and novels and movies. They haven't tapped into that Dark Souls energy of yeah, like just an awesome fucking hardcore dungeon crawl. And yeah, like if and what one did it great is a Tower Dungeon, where like yeah, if Tower Dungeon was a manga or an anime, it would be infinitely watchable. But yeah, even like movies, like as soon as I say that, maybe there people could think of an example, but you know what is like the closest kind of in a weird way is like Dread. You guys remember Dread? Dread is like a dungeon crawl movie. All takes place in one building, and you're going up levels and stuff happens, and it's intense. Actually, now that I said, I want to rewatch Dread, but like there isn't much like that out there. And so I've been thinking like that's a big itch to scratch because like Percival, so I can maybe fit it into like a Percival thing, but Percival is way more like Hercules, the legendary journeys. Like it's adventures and it's uses of the Grail and irony and all this stuff. It isn't even super supernatural, other than the Grail, really. A lot of it's just like, if there is action, it's like sword fighting and stuff and badass sword fighting and horses and shit, but not necessarily like going to a dungeon and fighting like a crazy evil monster that melts. Because that's the other thing. Like Tower Dungeon actually has a really huge body count. And this is almost like you can categorize stuff. This is pros and cons. Someone was mentioning. I think they said The Last Jedi is the biggest body count of any Star Wars movie. And yeah, I was kind of thinking like I'm kind of against huge body counts because sometimes I feel like they're unrealistic or like because or else you're just making a story about genocide. Like even so, Dune obviously has a huge body count. That one doesn't seem too bad because it's almost like so ridiculous that it kind of steps away from it becomes not ridiculous anymore, and then it kind of works because they just go so far with it that it becomes thematically interesting. But a lot of like big body counts, like I've mentioned, I watched people say they love Red Dead Redemption 2, and I watched my cousin back in the day was playing it, and I sat down and watched for like 10 minutes, and in that 10 minutes he was raiding a Cuban fort in Cuba, and he had killed like 100 people, and I was like, this is stupid. Like, no cowboy has ever killed 100 people. Like the cowboys that got legendary, it's like they'd kill two people and not die and get away with it. Then you're legendary at that point. Like Billy the Kid or whatever is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like his murder count is like 6 or 4 or something like that, and it's like legendary status. And yeah, this came up in a tweet earlier today. People were pointing out how awesome uh body armor was for knights, and they're like the comment was like, how did they even kill each other? And I was, so I've been reading the Percival novel that was written in like the year 1200 by this German guy. And in that novel, this like chivalrous tale of knights, the death count is like zero, almost zero. Like when they have huge battles, like people don't die, they just fall from exhaustion after a while, and then one team kind of declares the winner. And yeah, you do have like deaths here and there, and it's always like a freak accident where yeah, like a lance will go through an eye hole, and then like that one guy died. So like it's a huge battle and one guy dies, and straight up like yeah, and I'm like, it's funny because a lot of like you picture this is why one thing I kind of like about Percival, even if whether or not it's like true people what people like more, everyone has a preference for higher body count or lower body count, but low body count is a little bit underrepresented, and it's a fun, fresh angle into the material, and represent. And it's possible with some of this, uh, you know, like because if that's a thing, like you study the history, and you're like, yeah, in the Middle Ages, 2/3 of Europe died during the Black Plague, so obviously huge body count. And then I'm saying like, yeah, well, in the Percival novel, nobody dies pretty much, and that was written in 1200, so there it can kind of go either way. How men talk about their body count. Yeah. What's up, Bobby? Bobby. Uh, Billy the Kid killed 9 people and solely responsible for only 4 people. Yeah. So that's that. That's Angela Curry. What's up? What's up, everyone? Hey, we got 14 people watching. Um, Everyone go to Twitter and retweet my tweet, subtweet it, or if you don't mind, or we're doing a little final push here. Let's see if we can get somehow to 10,000. I mean, it's a little bit, it's a ways away. It's a ways away. We're 230 away, and we got what 48 minutes. Can we do it? Can we do it? So, Percival novel is how women describe their body counts. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. That is funny. It is more that is fiction. The Percival novel is fiction, and then whatever the reality. But yeah, so I feel like sometimes I think it's Genuine Class has talked about this where it's like a try hard thing a little bit. And this is me when I was younger. I wrote a Robin Hood version of this where I was like, I'm gonna do Robin Hood, but it's gonna be so gnarly, so badass, so like deadly. Just everyone's killing everyone, everyone's savage. Because back in the day, people weren't even human; they were all just savages. And so I wrote that, and it's like try hard, you know. And I'm really enjoying just writing people more like civilized and chivalrous and like kind of smart or whatever. And yeah, not everyone's just dying, not everyone's just killing for no reason. That kind of stuff. But yeah, that is like I picture it is like a way in that I don't particularly like where people are like, "Oh, dude, I'm gonna do a story about back in the day and just everyone kills everyone all the time. Just walking down the road, you just get stabbed." Except now they say that that could happen today in London and New York. People get stabbed, whatever, walking down the street. Seattle, closest city to me is Seattle. So yeah, what do you that we're talking? Yeah, that's funny. You're at the whims to do whatever you want. Like, okay, this is the question. Is the modern world more savage and ridiculous than medieval times? So medieval times, you're walking down the road and yeah, you meet a stranger and then like, yeah, maybe they're bandits, maybe they kill you. Like, I don't know, I feel like they have systems back then to deal with that, So if you want to be a bandit, they will hunt you down and kill you. That's actually like a cool story. I want to tell this story. There could be a version of it. You could do it like zombie style, but like say zombie apocalypse and yeah, so society breaks down. It would kind of reform. It would essentially be a posse, but you'd try to keep it legit. You're trying not to be like just murdering people for no reason, but you're trying to enforce justice. There would be a lot of these fun, like Star Trek-esque morality questions. But yeah, like say you have like 2 guys, they raided and killed a 2 people that were out hunting get murdered or whatever. One of them's a kid or something. And so yeah, you form a posse. You go after these bandits that killed and robbed these 2 people. You're in like the territory of Western plot. You're in the territory of like pretty simple but kind of awesome plot. I think I don't know. I like sometimes it's hard to think of simple plots. So when I do think of them, I will write them down. And there are ways once you get that you can beef up the story however you want with relationships, and you could throw a twist in there if you want. But yeah, that kind of stuff is interesting of like uh just the fact that society kind of self-corrects at any point in history. This is what I think is like and then it yeah, you just wonder like what one thing the other thing that's a little bit funny is supposedly back in the day the world population was like way lower, right? I don't know what it was like. Was it just was it less than a billion? So they say it's 8 billion now. What was it in the Middle Ages? Was it like the world population or like the population of Europe? I mean, I guess you're dealing with millions, so you can still have lots of deaths, but um yeah, the times when you could have like a lot of deaths is like, yeah, if the world's 8 billion, then sure you can have lots of deaths. Bro, he was at MegaCon this weekend. Got a little FOMO. Uh, Plot twist: the bandits were Robin Hood types, and they only killed in self-defense. Yeah, yeah. See, that would be like literally a pretty good story. That you're from the ground up, you're trying in earnest to reestablish some sense of justice. So you kind of create a new quote unquote police department, but it's just a posse. And yeah, controlling the posse is like ends up being super tough. And then, if you're doing the story, like it would almost be like you have internal affairs quickly gets invented again. And then you're just like, shit, we're just freaking policing the policeman. And then, like, what if that gets corrupted? Like, how fast things can get corrupt or whatever. I read a thing that said people didn't get PTSD in battle in ancient times because if you were out of archery range, you were relatively safe. Yeah, I could see that. So I wonder, like you're saying, you don't have like constant, like, what's it called? Spiked cortisol. Hey, Vaughn, what's up? Uh, yes, everyone. 43 minutes, 160 backers, 9770. Numbers are changing. If we stare, that 43 just became a 42. But that spikes my cortisol. Actually, kind of I'm ready for this campaign to wrap up. Then there's still the Indiegogo, so people will have a final little chance. Although I highly recommend the Kickstarter, and then there will be a little eBay with some stuff, some shenanigans, and then that's kind of it for a while. And I'm in like production, fulfillment, and then production, then maybe some surprises in the summer, and then I don't know. I want to do the mini comic thing I was mentioning, the 8 mini comics. Um, and I'll see how. Maybe if there's time for this live stream, that will kill the live stream. But maybe we'll go to that and start brainstorming again with that. Bobby says Indiegogo spikes cortisol. Yes, Kickstarter does not. Uh, we need to bring back the Roman Empire. I'm tired of these fucking suicidally empathetic plebs voting for the Republic's demise. Yes. I wonder, is that how the Roman Empire fell? Did they like vote? Was it yeah, what did you say? Suicidally empathetic? Probably not. I don't know. Tale as old as time. Um, so itches I want to scratch. It's like a list sometimes. And because right now I'm working on as many as like 3, 4 projects, and there's possibility of like a fifth, which is kind of too many. And I sometimes think about cut them all out, just work on one. The three big ones right now is Naked Samurai, the Brendan Swan one, and Percival. Uh, and I'm like, okay, maybe I could put two aside to work on just one, but the Percival one is like infinite. So that's where I was kind of thinking like I would just want to do Naked Samurai 1, finish it. It's 5 20-page shorts, like episodic adventures, uh, single issues. 5 of those, so 100 pages, black and white. Doesn't take forever. I could do it this year and some other stuff. It won't take up the whole year. And then Brendan Swan, same thing, black and white manga style. That one, part one is just 80 pages. Part two is like 100 pages, I think. Um, and so the whole story is 180 pages. That's a really fun script. So glad that I commissioned that from him at the height of his powers to do that for me. He created just, I don't know, if you're starting from like square one with a blank sheet of paper, something I've kind of noticed, there's a point where you kind of do wonder, like, how many of these do I have in me? Where, so if you're gonna do, say you're gonna do the zombie story, post-apocalyptic guy starts a posse and investigates the murder of the two hunters, like that kind of has a prearranged world, a pre-made world where you can just use the zombie apocalypse world. So you can jump into it faster and start writing it. But sometimes, yeah, if you're starting from a white page, then you have to build the world. Even if you're not super into world building, you still have to like understand the world that you're working in. If it's, especially if it's sci-fi or fantasy, and that can be however much willing you want to put into it. So much work. Like, I'm not even like a huge world builder guy, but Percival ended up just taking a ton of that, and Earthbound ended up being quite a bit by the time it's all said and done. It's funny with Earthbound, it sort of was less when I started it. I did kind of start it like I'm just gonna fly by the seat of my pants and make it up as I go. But then it does. But even just to press go, like, and I was mentioning, like, say your idea that you're eventually going to come up with is like Seinfeld. That takes surprisingly amount of world building just to do that, to get to that point where you're like, okay, all right. What world are we dealing with here that I'm going to be able to tell my story? When I can, sometimes it'll unlock and you're like, okay, I can tell 100 stories in this world now. Then you know you're like kind of in it a little bit. Um, and it's not always like that. That's for episodic stories, or TV show style. But even like that's what I think is kind of cool about Christopher Nolan is like he'll create these worlds, and you're like, oh, dude, that world was awesome. You should do another story in that world. And he's like, nope. It's a little bit of the embarrassment of riches kind of thing. Like the world of Inception seems really cool. Same with the world of Tenet, um, and yeah, some of the others, but those two in particular, I like a lot. So yeah, so you start with the blank page to get started. Brendan did that for me. He gave me like a freaking universe with gods and forces and 1,000 year backstory and blah 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 blah. And it's characters, all the names are great. Um, and yeah, it's kind of like a Super Nintendo RPG with a little bit of humor. Is like the story, which is fun. And yeah, so that is cool that I have that from him. And yeah, so if when I'm talking like these itches to scratch, of like if there's one project I want to do and I want to start from scratch, which I don't know if I even want to do that right now. That's why I kind of like shorts when they come up, if I can think of them, because that you do like not need as much of those. Sometimes you get those, and now you can expand on those as you do them. If you That's how you can get like a cool minimalist story, because I do like those too. That's one of the itches, is to do a minimalist story. But yeah, so say the Dark Souls dungeon crawler style. Imagine the amount of work you have to do before you start that. So there's say we try and do it minimalist. So you're like, okay, we need stakes. This probably will have to be a semi high body count. That's like how dungeon crawlers kind of work, and that's how Tower Dungeon works. Tower Dungeon does have like healing in it. You sometimes, yeah, you might have a device that allows for like death. Uh, but again, that can kind of hurt stakes. It's this balance, because if so, say if it's just like, yeah, one death and you're dead, but then you can write your guy into some crazy shit. Dark Souls will usually kill the guy, and then you get reborn as, you know, the undone, or whatever word they pick for you. Uh, Alex Berry. Damn, I was hoping for a Sega Genesis RPG. There is different styles of those, but I'm not too familiar with the style of the Sega Genesis RPG. I know the main one, it's Fantasy Star, and I don't know like the story of that. But I've been going down these rabbit holes of like lore on YouTube, and I've been going down the Between Two Fires set me down this kind of rabbit hole. But there's a bunch of YouTube channels that talk about books and specifically like horror books where they'll kind of describe the whole book for you in about 2 hours. So it's like they take a 200-page book and read like a lot of it to you, but you know that the book on tape for that would be like 5 hours or more, 8 hours, and they make it a 2 hour video, and I'm like, ooh, I really like this is paced just right, and so they're skipping over and summarizing some parts of the story, but then they're reading some of it, and it's like watching a movie that doesn't exist. For these books, a lot of times for the horror ones, they can be so gnarly that they would never get made into a movie anyway, and that's kind of fun. And yeah, between two fires like totally could be made into a pretty sweet movie. I guess the only thing they do say, it's funny, like they say it's episodic, and then they say that kind of as like some people will say that as a negative, and to me, I kind of always think of it as a positive, just because it's a little bit more rare. Um, and whereas, yeah, like versus like what do they say like episodic versus not episodic? It's like the South Park quote that people kind of love that Trey Parker said, where he's like, after every plot point of our story, we tell our writers that you have to say but or therefore. You can't say and then. If you say and then we need to rework it until you can say but or therefore. And it has to be but or therefore through the entire episode. Which yeah. But then if you think where the and then goes, the and then goes between the episodes. So like and thens are sweet. So I don't know, like don't take that quote with a grain of salt. Like they South Park tried to take all the and thens out. They tried to do seasons where it's not even episodic anymore. It's like all one big story. And yeah, you could do that, I'm sure. I don't know. You know who like kind of does that pretty good, just from a little bit of what I've seen, is it's is it who is it? Is it Oba? Who's the guy who does One Piece? But I watched some One Piece when I was living with my buddy a few years ago. He was going through One Piece, and he had made the decision like almost like as a New Year's resolution. He's like, I'm gonna start watching One Piece. And he caught up, but it took like 3 years for him to like fully catch up. But there were points where I'd watch a couple episodes and he'd be in the middle of this arc, and I'm like, oh, they're like building the way that's structured is like these huge arcs where it builds and 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 builds. And it is not really it is like all cinematic, all one thing, all but therefore. And they're building stakes, they're building everything. And then that would end. And that's after like it could be after multiple volumes of the manga, because it could be kind of de what's it called? Decrammed or whatever. Oda. Um RJ says no and then. No and then. There's an anime called Now and Then, I think. Here it's called like Here and There, Now and Then, or something like that. And it's a one where you get hit by the bus. It's an isekai. Uh, so yeah, the kind of work you have to do before you even kind of start writing the story, even if you're doing minimalist world building, you kind of need a way in. And thinking of a way in for a dungeon crawling story can be a little challenging. Um, but yeah, but I don't know. The panel breakers, that's like, with Alex and the memes and stuff, the loose lore for my head canon is it's like a meme dungeon, and they're doing dungeon runs in the meme dungeon. So that is like scratching that itch a little bit. But yeah, like what that would look like. Um, yeah, I don't know. Don't they call in like Silent Hill? Don't they call levels dungeons? Like it's just like the library, but they call it a dungeon because it's like structured like one sort of like any dungeon can be like kind of like getting keys and running around, I guess. But I think that's kind of cool. And Zelda has dungeons. Dungeons are like the coolest part of Zelda. Um, but and it is like this balance of you don't want it too video gamey, but a little video gamey is totally okay. It's kind of fun to have a little video gamey. The fact that you're doing a dungeon crawl already would be a little video gamey. Actually one that kind of tips in this is it's called Fear and Hunger. So yeah, Fear and Hunger and Between Two Fires kind of in the same realm, but Fear and Hunger is a RPG Maker video game made in Russia. Came out like 10 years ago. There's been a sequel, but the original is medieval. And the titular words, Fear and Hunger, are in reference to two dungeons, like I think under the same castle, or they're the dungeons of Fear and Hunger. So maybe that's like, it's a big freaking labyrinth of dungeons and it's called Fear and Hunger, which is awesome. Uh, and that story, it has old gods and new gods. So it gets into like some creepy ass monster shit that's kind of awesome. Your character dies super easily and often. But I guess if you put a full run together, when you die, it game's over. So it's not like it loops back. It's not like a, what do they call that? Um, you guys know what I'm talking about. But it's like you got to save your game and get through a little bit like survival horror, a little bit. Um, But yeah, Alex Withero. Or we'll get Konami on the phone and threaten them with violence so you can do a Silent Hill 2 story. Yeah, Silent Hill is sweet. Um, Fear and Hunger is difficult. Yeah, so that was a rare one that I bought, and I just played it a little bit. Feel like I could get into it if I forced myself, but I go through these phases where I kind of want to play games. Usually, I'm just watching them in the background. Um, but the last one, friends of the channel may remember, I was playing shoot, what's it called? The vampire one where he eats tomatoes. Uh, but that one, it was on the wrong emulator, and the emulator couldn't process certain graphics that it was doing, and it actually soft locked the game at a certain point, and I couldn't transfer my save to another emulator. So that kind of killed my vibe a little bit. Urban Life plus dungeon delving combos. Yeah, what's that? There's a video game that does that all the time. I can't think of it right now. It's got a huge following and um a bunch of entries. But Spike McFang, True Crime Streets of LA. I haven't played that. Yeah, Preacher said Persona. Persona is like that. Yeah, it's a good formula. Yeah, maybe balancing like real life with the dungeon crawling. It's like that a little bit is the manga. A lot of mangas do that, but the one it came up, we were talking about it on the stream. It's one where the black orb sends the people. Gantz is kind of like that. And I don't know if you'd count it as a quote unquote dungeon, but it does. Gantz does a good job of building up um stakes. Stakes is like one of the funnest things, I think, uh of like the intensity of life or death and knowing that you're in a tight spot kind of. And how you do that, I know things you can do, and it's like with that, it reminded me of like what I thought about marketing. Sometimes with marketing, I'm like, I don't know what works for marketing, but the thing that you do is you kind of do everything. If you just come up with a scheme and do everything you can, throw shit at the wall, see what works. You're just trying stuff. As long as you're trying, then that's helping. But building tension, there's like little tricks and stuff and tropes that work specifically well. Like for stakes, for example, one of the best tropes you can do is like it's like I don't know if you'd call it a I think you call it a rug pull, but it's like the safety net rug pull is like a trope that works really freaking well for building stakes. That combined with the ticking clock. So say like our team goes into the dungeon, but they're like, "Don't worry, this is just a scouting mission. We still have Gregoire Duroc with us, and he's like invincible. So as long as we're with him, no one will attack us. So we can actually just do our job and scout a little bit." And you're like, "Cool." So that you go in, and immediately something happens, and Gregoire Duroc gets freaking murdered, and you're like, "Oh, that was our guy who was gonna like make it so we don't get killed." So you're like, "Hi," they're all hiding. Like, what do we do now? Like, I don't know. We're totally gonna die. And they're like, there's another problem. The portal that we used to get in here, uh, it closed. So we're stuck here." And you're like, "So we are gonna die." And they're like, "Yeah." Yeah. Then you built stakes pretty good there. There's maybe if I'm trying to name like tricks you can do, Spielberg, there's a type of suspense that Spielberg does where it's all it is kind of like teasing, and that can help too. But so there's Hitchcockian suspense, which is like structural, where the audience knows more than the characters, and that's when the audience is like screaming at the camera, like don't open that door. And there's Spielbergian suspense, which is more just like cutting to slow motion and slowing down and things interrupting. So you you want to see what's behind the door, but they keep not letting you that happen because of distractions, because of filmmaking techniques and whatever. And then finally they do get to open the door, and then so that you're held in suspense. Like that even for that is like the T-Rex. So in Jurassic Park, you know the T-Rex is going to come pretty soon. And he's around. You know at any moment he could like run out and chomp the car. But Spielberg does it where like he's like, "You're not going to get to see the T-Rex right away. We're going to make you like sit and wait in this tension." And that is awesome. So yeah, if you can combine all those things, um then so what is that? That would be like the ever present looming cortisol spike. So write that down as a trope, everyone, that you can use to create tension. The ever looming presence of the cortisol spike when it hasn't dropped yet. The T-Rex, he's gonna spike your cortisol at some point. You don't know when, it could be at any moment, and you just don't know. What about with that? Another one that you can do is the loose cannon sidekick or whatever. It's a pretty good one. I don't know. There's kind of a million, but yeah. So that's like the marketing thing. You just got to do as many as you can, build the stakes as much as you can. Um, Tower Dungeon did it really well, and some of it was Spielbergian. They just build up to the tower. You don't even get to enter the tower right away, and then they have pretty high body count. People are dying. So you know it's like life or death. That's like an obvious one that yeah, you just got to do it if that's the type of story it is. You got to kill some people, but I don't know. Unless you write it flying by the seat of your pants, but then the plot gets mangled like Attack on Titan. Oh, I feel like knowing only as much as the characters know and figuring it out with them. Uh, it's challenging to write that solo though, since you as the author do know. Gregoire Duroc was powerful but really stupid. He ran into a trap room like those noobs in the first Sword Art Online. Yeah, totally. Shit, Gregoire Duroc, you were our freaking way out, buddy, and you blew it. Gregoire Duroc blew it, man. I'm invested in Gregoire Duroc's character already. I can't believe he's gone. Yeah, maybe Gregoire Duroc can make an appearance somewhere. Well, I kind of stole Gregoire. Gregoire is a character from Grand Prix. I'm pretty sure, right? I call him Gregoire and Ramstein are the two pilots at the very beginning. I hope that comes up. I that's what I call him. I don't always. I've kind of focused more on this now, but I didn't always used to focus on like, make sure the characters' names get said 5 times during the story so the audience can remember it, whatever. Even if that's sacrificing more natural dialogue. I used to be more like, no, we're just doing natural dialogue, and if the names don't get said, that's fine. But I'm definitely more on the side now of, because remembering the name can definitely help people remember the story, enjoy the characters. So it's kind of a way in. We got one backer as we've been talking. It was 161 right there. We're now $5 from 9,795. I don't know if anyone wants to increase their pledge by $5, make it 9,800, maybe. Maybe. Gregoire Ramstein comes back as a vengeful ghost. He thinks they betrayed him. Yeah. Then Duroc is like his brother. Gregoire Duroc could be a semi-realistic name for a knight. I think. A French knight. As long as du means something in French. I think it does mean something in French. It means of the. So Gregoire Duroc means Gregoire of the Rock. And he's a big guy. Too bad he died right away. But yeah, I don't know what other. I had a few written down that are like on the itches to scratch thing. Oh, if something minimalist comes up, if sometimes a story will come up where you can get into it right away without, it is like the more minimalist thing. And for some reason, it's just working and the audience is invested. Because if you, with action, because usually I feel like the common wisdom is that if you start with just action, right away for too, especially for too long, that sort of doesn't work because the audience isn't invested. So yeah, you can tease some good action or whatever, but you got to set everything up and then build stakes, all that. Then you get your action. Then it does really matter and people get invested. But some stories, they kind of can start pretty much right away and it works. And I'm like, what is that alchemy? And I have one of the Naked Samurai shorts is like that for me. It does technically have a setup, um, but the setup is pretty quick, and you just press go kind of thing, and get your action, and the action goes for like 20 pages, seeing how it plays out. I do like those kind of stories. I always want to think of another one if I can. They're kind of hard to think of sometimes. One that's almost like that is the post-apocalyptic posse going after the two bandits who killed the hunters. And you know what's funny about that? Like hypothetically, is like that's a good way in. You could get started right away. I feel like the younger me would be super pumped uh, that I had something that I could work with, and I'd jump in and start writing that. But nowadays, I'm kind of backed up on Percival, and I got a few other things I want to write, so that just sits there, and then inevitably it ends up being something maybe a little more complicated that I end up writing. And I'm like, I'm leaving some of these fun minimalist ideas on the table, and I'm like, I wish I could write them both, or I can sometimes write two things at once, but usually it'll be like shorts and then Percival. And I'm close to being able to put Percival to the side for a little bit. Because the first quote unquote season, it's 8 adventures, and I'm almost done with the sixth. And there's going to be 7 and 8, and which that is, and those that I think will be a two-parter. That is like a big undertaking. That can take potentially like a year, but I don't know. But to write both those, they're like 6. It would be 6 comic issues. So, maybe it takes 6 months. I think I could do it in 6 months, but depending on a lot of times, yeah, working everything out with that, especially if it's two-parter. And there's one other two-parter in that set of 8. 2 and 3 are kind of a two-parter. 1, 2, and 3 kind of all go together really nice as like the first 9 issues. And that would be like the run if the run has like checkpoints, because daydream about it as like being published by like Image or whatever. And it's like the first adventure is just 3 comic issues, so that could be a run. And then if if it bombed or whatever, God forbid, you could stop there. Maybe I would feel like I would just keep going, but I would just move to crowdfunding or whatever. But if it keeps going, then you can go to 9. And at that point, yeah, like hopefully you actually have like pretty strong base buildup that are with you till as far as you want to go. And then you could go to 24. And I have ideas for a quote unquote second season. And that's before he personally even gets back to Camelot. But then he gets back to Camelot. I have a draft of that written. It needs a redraft, but that's like a 400 page. It's more like a mini series. Uh, but rather than like a TV show or a movie, it's like more like a mini series. But that's like a huge fun adventure when he gets back to Camelot. He's arrived way too late. He has the Grail. He's supposed to get the Grail for Arthur, but it took him way too long to get it. Arthur's in exile somewhere. He doesn't even know. Mordred has taken over and ruled Camelot for like 40 years at this point, borderline multiple generations. Camelot's completely been transformed, and he's got to deal with this situation, kind of thing. On second thought, let's not go to Camelot. 'Tis a silly place. Yeah. Guys, 14 minutes to go. 9,795. 13 minutes to go. We're so close. Um, 15 people watching. How's it going, everyone? Thanks for being here. Close to the end. Oh, so close. Should I? I can't back my own. I'm like, I would back it for 200, get it over 10,000. People have been saying I should put up original art. That would push it over, but I kind of don't have anything right now. Yeah, I have some stuff, but I actually got a commission, so I'm working on a commission that's kind of already been bought. So like, yeah, I finished that. I sell that. I can do another. Are you using period vernacular for Percival, like archaic language? No, and I'm a little bit nervous about that because, yeah, I wonder if I could um, lose some. I know there are people who are really into that, but yeah, borderline. What do they call it? Borderline anachronistic, but not like crazy though. Not people like, dude, what up? It's just like people say sir and stuff, but I'm not like doing tons of research at this point. And if you go too crazy with it, then it loses the flow. I'm trying to keep the flow. Um, but I don't know. There is a balance. You want a little bit of that, I think, and I'm interested in getting a little bit. Like I think actually even the Between Two Fires guy, he did an interview, and that's the same thing. Like they criticize him. They're saying the dialogue was anachronistic, and I heard it, and I was like, that sounds like the opposite. Like sounds like he's trying to be in the period, and it's kind of both. Like he's doing it with like a flow to keep the modern readability going, but he's throwing in little things that are kind of details. Like I'm trying to think. One of them is I think like instead of like swearing, like one guy he's a French knight, and so his as he swears he says like bugger me or something like that. Like so that's like a little detail, and whether or not you could say oh that's period. Obviously that's not just saying like oh what the f is this like what the fuck like that's like modern and then saying like bugger me is like see I'd be into that and my people don't say what the fuck either but I don't know what they say that's I gotta look I kind of forget if that comes up if they have to say something like that they don't say oh my god because it is like it's like in a wait polytheistic world whatever multiple gods so this is like things that people say by the gods and I'm like I don't know if I want to just say that. Sometimes they might invoke um the actual god name. What I do have that's fun is there's a lot of people they like Aniki, and that's a little bit of like conquered people. Iniki got taken over and reappropriated to a different god. So it's borderline illegal to like Iniki, but so it's kind of like on the down low, like the revolutionary ish kind of hip. He's kind of like the hip god. So the kids like him, and he's a frog. And I have one kid that like okay, as I say this, it might not sound super cool, but if he sees a frog in real life, he always points it out. So he'll be in the middle of a conversation and he goes, "Frog!" and he points at the frog. And then he'll like keep going. That's like part of his like excitement about Iniki is like he wants people to know where the frogs are if he sees one. People keeping their eyes out and stuff. Um and that doesn't go quite with your question. It's not like that's but I feel like that is like at least quote unquote authentic detail within the world. The more of those the better, whether or not it's from the story you're making, the fiction, or it's from yeah, like history, the way people whatever you can find. The last thing I'll say about that too is by the way, 9 minutes left, we're getting down there. Um I've been back and forth with Robert Eggers, and I wonder where people line up with him on in the chat. But I'm kind of on I feel bad about it, but I'm on a little Robert Eggers hater arc ish. Not like so far as hater, but I used to really like him, and I didn't like Nosferatu that much. I didn't like the Norseman that much, and then his new movie Werewolf that doesn't look good to me, doesn't sound good. I'll definitely go see it. He's good enough for me to be like curious and just wonder what the hell he's up to. I'm sure he has some more good movies in him, but whereas like yeah, The Witch, the period specific stuff seemed to really work. Um, and then at other times I didn't like it as much or care as much or whatever or notice. Like I don't know. I feel like Nosferatu might have borderline been more in that realm of yeah, just adding some like Shakespearean, just some little words to kind of make it period, but it's not actually. It's they're kind of keeping some of the fun modern flow comedy if they can get it, whatever dialogue. That's cool. I've read a few fantasy stories with Shakespearean touches. I'd rather have legibility than period accuracy. See, that's kind of how I feel. That's good to hear you say that because, yeah, I think you might lose some people, and I've been curious about that as far as marketing goes. Like launching Percival, like I don't know if I might have mentioned this before, but for example, there's a account on Twitter with maybe I don't know, maybe 50,000 followers. I don't know, maybe not that many. But I've noticed that I actually followed it because it's called Percival. And I think it's a borderline culture war account, but like it, tweeting and retweeting like save England ish stuff, maybe, or whatever. But also like appreciating old art, a lot of that on the account, and appreciating quote unquote right wing art, maybe that kind of thing. And I was thinking like, oh, it'd be cool if my book, if I could go to them and be like, hey, your account's named Percival. You know, I'm doing a book called Percival. And then whether or not they'd be like, I could see it going two different ways of them being without even reading a page. They're biased one way or the other, but they might be like, well, it better be the most historically accurate thing ever, or I hate it. And I'd be like, I'm reading the original Percival novel from written in the 1200s by the German guy. You don't even know the German guy's name. You haven't read it twice. You aren't like I'm like I'm not using that as the plot though. I'm like going off of others. I'm doing my own thing. He's like, you're doing your own thing. Like sacrilege. How dare you? This is left wing propaganda reappropriating the classics. I don't know. I could just see that. And I don't know. Let the chips fall where they may, I guess. But it's going to be good. And it is. So someone commented, they're like, oh, we need like heroic, wholesome adventures or something like that. And I was like, it kind of ticks those boxes. Like I think I was telling you guys, it's a lower body count, but all that means is like if people do die, it means more. It's like hits harder when people do die. I'm guessing Perry's team Nolan on his upcoming Odyssey film. Oh, totally. I am 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know that's where I see it. I see so many people hating it, and a lot of people like it too. But I'm like, oh, I would like those people that hate it. Those are like my boys a lot of times. Like I think a lot of people in chat maybe not enthused about the Nolan armor, you know. Uh, With Percival, I tweeted today. I was like, by the way, guys, 5 minutes. Look at that. I tweeted that I'm doing some Percival armor, and yeah, I don't know. John Snowden commented. He had a kind of a great comment talking about minimalist armor and a good example, and it was Russell Crowe from Gladiator, and he named his armor pieces. I was like, that is. I'm like, you know what you're talking about. That's awesome. I'm humbled by that. Like, I didn't think that far, but I'm like literally just sitting there like drawing and drawing hinges. I'm not doing even that much research, but the armor design. Like, I spent like 8 hours drawing, like to figure out the armor. And I have all these sketches. I have like pages and pages because you fill in that time for just sketching, you fill pages. And there's ones I like, I'm like, I'll use those. And it's like, it just looks like armor. I'll think about so even with Percival, I'm like, his hodgepodge armor before he gets his awesome armor. This is what I want to do is like, it's almost like exoskeleton bars. Like it's like the plate mail hasn't been added, but the skeleton has been added. So he has these shoulder pads that are like a cage kind of thing that it's stopping any kind of like smashing blow is getting like hit, but any stabbing it wouldn't stop. So I'm like, is that terrible or is that all armor has pros and cons? And you're like, maybe he would just take the time to find a way to plate it up, but then it's heavier. I'm like, I think he wants lighter armor. So I kind of like this idea of having like even I have him. He has these like straps of iron, kind of strapped to his uh whatever forearm, and that was something John Snowden said he had a word for it, but there's the and that is an armor thing where you can have metal from here to here, which is funny. Like in the NBA, people wear sleeves. I'm like, oh, is that whatever? That's like the armor of going to war, but yeah, like that can very much come in handy bracing that spot. Um, and yeah, he had a word for it. And like he said, shins are pretty much you got to have your shins guarded. And I was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. Paul Pauldron's GRM writes a bunch about armor parts. Yeah, it seems if you're pretty knowledgeable about a subject and see it in a movie and see a mistake, it immediately takes you out of the film, breaks immersion. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is like just a psychological truth. That is the way it goes. And then yeah, like if you're like, okay, I don't want to piss off any of the armor nerds, and then all of a sudden you like your story, it's like I don't really want to go that direction of like because well, for one thing, it's more fantasy than history, my story, so that kind of frees me up a little bit. But that's like one thing they were showing with the Nolan stuff is like, yeah, the armor, it actually wouldn't look that cool if you did it historically accurate. That's what I mean. That's kind of what I think. But the rule of cool, that's what they say. Yeah, that is the way to go, in my opinion. 2 minutes, guys. Is gonna. Oh my God, 1 or 18 seconds. 161 9795. So close to 10,000. We didn't make it in the end, or did we? We'll see. We're not going to make it. We're just going to sit and watch this go down. Yeah, I'll see. It's almost 8. What does that mean? What's next for me? What am I doing tonight? I don't even know. I got to eat a little food. And maybe I could get back to work, try and do another freaking panel because I only did one panel. And you know what I did too is it had to be the hand holding the idol. I kind of finally got it the way I wanted it, but it had been so loosely drawn at that point. I need to go in and add details. I'm scared to ruin it because I kind of got it the place I wanted. But why Pauldrons? Why not Stevendons? Why not Kevindrons though? Yeah. I on the lore dump thing. I've been watching some lore dumps on Book of the New Sun. I think it's called. It was Gene Wolfe. I'm sure a lot of you guys might know about this. Very famous fantasy book. And that's been a lot of fun. And one thing I did notice about that one is I think you might call it naming conventions or just naming What's your name game? And that book has dope name game. Like everything has awesome names. Like his sword has a cool name. I forget what it's called, but um and yeah, then the jobs have cool names. The city, I think the city might be called Citadel. Citadels are cool. You know, that maybe that's been you can think of other examples where that's been used. Oh my god, 18 seconds. It's red. You guys, it's red. It's red. It's red. It turned red. It's gonna end. It's gonna end. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 2, 1. 1. Boom. Congratulations. 161 is solid. Yeah. I wonder, we'll see where the Indiegogo ends, but I mean, I would love to hit 200 for everything. So if the Indiegogo hits 39 and it has 2 more weeks, some people prefer the Indiegogo, so I'm kind of counting on that. Who knows? Uh, who knows? Yeah, 161 will get to read Grand Prix Part 3, continuing the story, the full whoa, it updated. Yeah, now I got to send out what's it the what's it called? The thing to get everyone's address. I once ate the entire first book of A Song of Ice and Fire. It didn't sit well with me. That resulted in a huge lore dump. Yeah. Gregoire Duroc eats books and shits lore, so they say. All right, well, what else? I might get out of here in a second. Let me see where we're at. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, I got a lot of retweets right at the end. But I think everyone who wanted to backed, which is good. Got some in at the last day. Make him a barbarian. Yeah, was I saying anything before we got distracted by it counting down? We're talking about some stuff. I don't know. Yeah, we're talking about armor accuracy. But yeah, like so armor. The main thing I was thinking with armor, and I looked at for reference too. I just looked at Tower Dungeon, which has awesome, very simple armor, and very it's like chainmail and a sweet ass helmet, and their helmet is designed. This is the one thing I kind of noticed about armor, and it was a little bit confirmed by that tweet today. They were showing like they layer the armor on purpose, but like one of the things you want for armor, it's like step one, make sure your head can't get chopped off. So you're like, okay, I'll just like put a turtleneck thing right here. Or no, they're like, I'll have my helmet come down a little further to cover my neck. They're like, no, stupid. They can still chop your head off. Here, let me show you. Like, okay, so what do I do then? Like, you need a second piece of armor here to go up, and it needs to be braced from your shoulders and just cover your neck, kind of like a metal turtleneck braced from your shoulders. And you're like, but then can I not turn my head? Like, no, it can be wide. It can be outside of your, if your helmet comes down, the big metal turtleneck can be, yeah, like either under and close, but it can be wide and you got plenty of room to move. And nobody's going like this. It goes, conk. You're like, I tried to chop his head off and it got to the big metal turtleneck. And yeah, so Tower Dungeon has this where it's too. I'm trying to think. Maybe can I draw it? Uh, where is so the Tower Dungeon armor? Yeah, the main piece, it's like a piece like this. That's like the don't chop off my head piece. And then it's like, um, and I think this might all be one piece. I mean, the whole thing is, so this is the helmet that they wear. And it's all one piece. This is with it down. It looks like kind of like that. It looks kind of cool. Uh, and yeah, you ain't chopping off nobody's head with that finish right there, you know. You could gash their shoulder right here, but yeah, then maybe they have like some shoulder pads. And you're like right here, you're like, yeah, it overlaps a little bit. F you. Um, so yeah, in Tower Dungeon, this thing it goes back. So then it rotates back, and then this is what it looks like when it's fully back like that. And and then so the guy with it back, he looks like this. He looks kind of like Vader. Like their mouth is like right here. They might have they have helmet hair. Um yeah, so whatever, something like that. And that's like pretty sweet. Maybe this goes down a little bit. I forget. The whole thing comes like uh but yeah, that's pretty badass. But I invented one for Percival that and I'm like, I don't know. I'm self-conscious about showing you guys my armor designs because you could like make fun of them or whatever, but it's like the initial it's like a poncho kind of thing. This is a top view. This these are like woven into like the kind of sturdy leather or steel plates like this. This is the back here. So this kind of just sits. So from dude, this is kind of badass. You guys. I think you guys might think who knows. So side view, here's kind of the this kind of sturdy leather thing. Um, and I think it might have some steel there and there, and like maybe there and there, but just like a little exoskeleton kind of into the leather at these points. And so this is that side view. That's the back. This is the front. And yeah. So then you could take this point and you could strap them together. The whole thing folds up and then it looks like this. It's been strapped. So there's a slit here and it's been strapped. That's the back. This is the front. And you've got these leather with these uh, metal kind of sturdy metal bars are in the leather. And then his head is like this, poking out of it. I don't know if it's that tall. It might be a little bit shorter. So it is. It's the big turtleneck, and that stops head lopping. And then he does have a helmet. So yeah, if he gets his helmet, and this is his hodgepodge version of his. Yeah, so his hodgepodge, he's got the shoulder. It's all like exoskeleton kind of style. It's not plated, but nobody's freaking chopping that. I don't know if his helmet's shiny. I don't know about this shape either. It could have a little something to it. Maybe just regular. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think he dons his shit really that much. Just a little bit. Um, and reminds me of modern IED gear. Oh yeah, that could be cool. But yeah, thinking of like the ways things could strap up like that is fun. And I noticed something with Percival is like, so I'm not known for being a detail guy necessarily, but when I draw Percival, people be like, damn, it's so detailed. And I'm like, it's because I know every piece, every garment, and I know all the like seam lines of every garment that he's wearing. So I can draw him every time. And then, yeah, he just looks sweet and everybody thinks it's all detailed. And I'm like, maybe that's the trick is like just knowing. I guess, like the trick with that with Spider Man is like, yeah, just he feels detailed because of the webbing and it's a cool kind of thing or whatever. But strap on some detail. Yeah, for shizzle. And I wondered about like there is a thing with like, so say it was a movie and your leading actor, you get like young Johnny Depp is playing Percival with white hair, and you're like, oh shit, we're gonna put a helmet on him the whole movie. It's like, yeah, Tower Dungeon solves it because their helmets go back all the way like that. So just to for like recognize who's who and stuff. But when their helmets are down, they don't like spoon feed you. You gotta just know who's who, which is fun. But with this Percival, he's not wearing his helmet very often. He only puts it on for battle if shit's hitting the fan or whatever. Uh, and he does have this thing, but it'll be strapped down a lot of times. So yeah, it'll just look like that, and he'll be kind of regular, got his shit looking, um, with all his shit, blah 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 blah, blah 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 blah. Yeah. Okay, well with that, I think almost an hour and a half here at the stream. We ended the campaign. That was fun. Thank you for hanging out, seeing it through. So close to 10K. It's great. We got close to 161 backers. The Indiegogo was still live. So we'll see where that ends. We're going to keep promoting that a little bit. And yeah, thanks everyone. I'm going to get out of here.